This is Courtney's 2016 Mini Cooper S. It's great to have a full dealer service history, but after our local Mini dealer quoted £700 to change the front and rear discs and pads, we decided to change them ourselves. The fronts are £250 and the rears come in at under £200 for all Brembo discs and pads, but the rears don't even need changing yet. This job can be done in a couple of hours at most with basic hand tools, yet main dealers will charge £700 for under £450 of parts and an hour or two of labour, so you can potentially save hundreds by doing it yourself. In this video, we'll show just how easy it is to change your brakes yourself by changing the front discs and pads on the Mini. As Mighty Car Mods once said, the first step is to jack up your car. We're using our new Quick Jack hydraulic portable lift, which we assembled in my last video, but there's plenty of videos online of how to put a Mini on 4 jack stands using a trolley jack. However, the Quick Jack will lift almost any car safely and easily from the factory jacking points, providing great time savings and peace of mind when working on the car. The next step of any brake change is to whip the wheels off. It's a good idea to crack the bolts loose before lifting the car, as the wheels will want to spin even if left in gear with the handbrake on, once you try to undo them in the air. On the John Cooper Works front bumpers, you have this air duct for brake cooling. Functional, goes through to the inside of the arch liner, and the heat shield is actually bent to let air get behind the rotor. That is sick. Nerdy, but cool. Here, Courtney is removing the grub screw that holds the brake disc. These are usually pretty easy to undo, as they just hold the disc loosely in place while the wheels are off. Now I'm loosening the sliders that hold the caliper onto the caliper carrier. These usually consist of either 2 nuts or a nut and a bolt, so you'll use 2 spanners or a spanner and a ratchet to undo them. The bolts are sealed with Loctite and done up pretty tight, so it takes a bit of strength and WD-40 to get them moving. Courtney is taking over now they're loose though. The caliper will have to come off soon, so we're unclipping anything that might stop us moving it out of the way. This brake line is pulled off its bracket, and the wiring for the brake wear sensor is also unclipped. We're replacing the wear sensor while we're at it, which will be necessary if you use enough of the pad that the disc touches the sensor, although this turned out not to be needed in our case. On the Mini, the sensor plugs in behind the arch liner, so you'll have to remove a plastic rivet and undo at least 1 screw to get to the plug. Now the caliper can be slid off the pads. I recommend taking some zip ties, attaching them together to make them long enough, and using them to hang the caliper from your suspension. This keeps it out of the way until they're ready to go back on and stops them pulling on the brake lines, which could potentially do some damage.
So that's out of the way, now you can get to pads, easy peasy.
The pads just pull out of the caliper carrier. If you aren't changing the discs, you can simply grease up the tabs on your new pads, throw them in, re-grease the sliders, and reassemble everything. However, we have a set of new rotors, as the originals are nearing their minimum thickness, so the caliper carrier is coming off too so that we can get the rotor out. This just requires the removal of 2 big bolts at the back. Sometimes brake discs will be stuck on with rust, but a few hits with a mallet should loosen them right up. Then you can clean up the hubs with a wire brush to make sure your new discs have a flat surface to bolt to so you don't get any bad vibrations. This next step is optional, but a pink light-up skateboard really makes your brake change more enjoyable. Maybe that's why the dealerships charge so many hours of labour for such a quick job. Anyway, back to work. The new discs are fitted, along with a new grub screw nipped up tight. Over-tightening these is super easy because they're made of cheese, so be careful. That's why the discs come with new screws in the first place. Next, we cleaned and re-greased the sliders using brake cleaner, kitchen towel or rags, and new copper grease, then popped them back into the caliper carrier. This will stop them sticking or binding so you don't ruin your lovely new discs and pads. Now it's time to bolt the caliper carrier back on, being careful not to scratch the new discs. With the caliper carriers torqued to spec, we can give the discs a wipe down with brake cleaner, ready to accept a fresh set of brake pads. On the Mini, the passenger front brake pad has a wear sensor, which can be unclipped from the old pad and clipped into the new one, or replaced entirely if the old one has been worn into. Unfortunately, it gets dark quickly this time of year, so the Aldi floodlight had to come out so the camera would pick up what we're doing. Courtney greased the tabs on the brake pads with copper grease to reduce any squealing where they rub against the caliper and the carrier. Then I clipped them in, ready for the caliper to go back on. Before the caliper can be refitted though, the piston has to be pressed back in to allow it to clear the pads, which are thicker than the worn ones that we removed. To do this, we have to remove the cap on the brake fluid reservoir to relieve the pressure as we press the pistons in, which will make it a lot easier. Due to modern automakers' obsession with covering everything in plastic, there's a cover over the brake fluid reservoir on the Mini, which has 2 plastic twist clips and 1 hex nut to remove. Now the piston can be pressed back in, using a caliper wind back tool that came in a kit off eBay for only £15. If you don't have the tools, I've seen people use G-clamps before, although I don't recommend it, but on some cars the caliper has to be screwed in rather than just pressed, so you might not be able to get away with it. In any case, Chinese kits are cheap and last forever, so make a great little investment for future use. The wear sensor wire is routed through the hole in the caliper, then we can start to tighten the new caliper bolts into the sliders and torque to spec. Finally, it's time to start the satisfying process of clipping the brake line and the wear sensor wiring back to their mounting bracket. Then, plugging the wear sensor in behind the arch liner and fastening the arch liner back down. When there was a bit more light the next morning, we got on with refitting the wheels, ready to lower the car down. I hope this video was entertaining and that some of you even found it helpful for your own mini brake change. If you'd like to see more of Courtney's Cooper S or follow the build of my VXR, consider subscribing, and if you enjoyed the video, maybe leave a like and a comment for the algorithm. Thanks for watching. Sick.